Today's video, can you guess? Valentine's inspired. So just some creative kind of fun ideas for some love mugs, and I'm going to show you how you too can make these. So from start to finish, I'm going to show you how I throw them, how I trim them, how I put my handles on, how I make my little labels and attach them, and glazing will come at a later date. But you know it's going to be fun, so you're going to want to stay tuned to this video. But first I got to take this red lipstick off because it'll be all over my face. If you want to be more consistent, one of the things I find is you need to start with a consistent amount of clay. If you're just randomly pulling chunks of clay, you may start, you might pull something, that's 1 pound, and maybe one that's a 1 1/4 pound, and one that's 2 pounds, and you're trying to create an expected size. So you kind of want to start off with the same size clay. I'm going to be throwing approximately 1.5 pounds. That is my kind of my magic number when I'm throwing my mega mugs or my larger mugs. So let's just see. I think this is going to probably be, no. So start with 1.5 pounds. So 750 grams, which is quite a bit of clay. I'm also planning on making sure that I have enough to carve out a foot. So you want to think about these things. Is your piece going to have a foot on the bottom? If you're just going to wire it off at the bottom, or even just let it dry off your bat, which a lot of potters will do to save on trimming. If you're going to do those things, you may not need to use as much clay because you can just drill down and that's that. You don't have to save or have more clay in order to finish your piece. So it really depends what you're going to be doing. If you're going to be carving details in your mug or pot or whatever, like if you're going to be doing something, you got to take that into consideration when dividing up your clay. I'm just going to get them ready to go on the wheel. So I'm just going to do that ram's head. You will have probably learned this in your class, and you want to be careful. You don't want to push air in, so you want to kind of almost push back the sides as you're rolling your clay, and you're trying to get that whole movement going. And you can see the whole, you got a little ram's head happening there. You're just trying to get the clay particles aligned and starting to move into a circle, that curve, and that will make it a little bit easier for you instead of trying to throw a block. That could be very tricky for a new person to the process. So just I just sort of push in those edges so that you're not going to create two little air pockets there, but it's a sort of a push down, kind of getting that clay moving in a circular spiral. Wedge it just to make sure I get, and that is a practiced skill. It took me a long time. I'm still not perfect at it, but it took me a long time to figure out the right hand movements in order to do this. And it really is good when you're trying to wedge up a much bigger piece of clay, or when I'm doing my reclaimed clay. It's a great skill to have because ram's head, I find, doesn't necessarily pull out the air bubbles as efficiently as spiral wedging does. So you can see you get a nice little cone ready for the wheel. This is my bat mate. I use it all the time, and it's sits between my wheel head and my bat of choice. It helps prevent, gives it a bit of a grip, helps prevent it from rattling, or if you've got like a little bit of a warped bat, it just gives a better adhesion so that your bat doesn't move around. I use the Dirty Girl bat system. I find I like my bat just slightly damp. It will help your clay balls stick. When you're first starting out, try to make it as round as possible. You don't have to slam it down real hard. I mean, it's fun, but you can just place it and give it a good whack. And you want to get it as close to center at the beginning. And this will make a world of difference for you instead of trying to fight it in. So you can actually just begin tapping it into center. That's going to help you a great deal just by, at a slow pace, just slap that clay into center, making it a little bit of a dome. It's still off, but it's going to help. Okay, so you're going to get that. It's going to make a world of difference. The other thing you want to do is you want to anchor yourself. You want to anchor your arm. I find this is too low to be right on my bat wheel, but I get it right into my hip bone here. So my setup is I try to make it as convenient for myself as possible. You know, I've got my tools sitting here in front. I've got my water. I always like warm water. And then I have my reclaim bucket, so I can literally, all my chunks that I get, I can just dump there. I usually put a towel on one leg, sometimes both. Now, getting my hands wet, getting my clay body wet, you want this to be slippery at all times. You should, in theory, if you brace yourself right in here, if you're doing this, you're gonna have a hard time. So brace yourself, and you can just push. When the hand is wet, you'll be able to push that clay body into center. The idea is you want to get the two working together. One's coming down, one's going in, and it forces the clay into center. Now I'm doing it at a slow pace so that it's easier for you to see. This little chunk of clay on the bat, we'll throw it off a little bit so you can take it off. But in theory, you can cone up with one hand. It's not your fingers so much. Your fingers are there, they're part of the process, but you're really doing most of the work with the meaty part of your palm. If you're getting drag like I am right now, you need water. It's really hard to center if your hands drag. If there's any drag, you are going to throw it off center. Now, of course, speed really helps. So when you're trying to center, getting it at as high a pace as possible. But right there, I can feel little spots. You don't have to use a ton of water, but making sure it's slippery. So you're gonna push in. If you want, a great way, and what I learned is I grab my thumb, and then that makes almost like that a little bit of like a chop saw. It forces the clay. So you're using here and here to lock that clay into center, and bracing your arm into your body, you will get center. So that's going to be a world of difference. If you're not centered, you are going to struggle with all of your pieces. So you want to know if your fingers are bouncing around a lot, then you're not center. So you can do that too. If they're pretty steady, you're in a good spot. So I like to open my clay up. I typically push it down, and I have a good idea. That is the size of my puck that I like when I'm throwing. And I'll get a ruler so I can, it's approximately, it's like 4 1/4 inches wide right now. That's the approximate, and it's probably 1.5 inches high. Hands wet, clay wet. So just letting that clay body sort of move in your hand. Your thumb, or whatever you do, if you're going to open up with your finger, I like opening up with my thumb on my left hand. I just let my thumb find that spot, but I use my other hand to help push it in. If there's any sort of drag, take just a little bit of water, fill that little hole up, and then push it in. And then I pull it open, And it was a little dry there. You can see how it's wet and then it's dry in the inner crook there, and that's why it began to go off centered. But, you know, you can easily bring it back to center if need be. So I'm just going to now compress the bottom. We pulled it out, so now we're going to compress by bringing it back in. Now with me and my thumb, I've also learned it gives me the thickness that I like on the bottom. So just so you get an idea, right there, that's pretty thick. I don't know if you can see that, it's pretty thick. But it's going to get thinner as I go along, because in the end, I do compress this quite a bit, and I'm going to be doing I'm going to be trimming a foot on here after the fact. I do this a few times just to make sure I've got it really nice and compressed. I've cut this sponge. I like working with it. I've cut it all these different, just cut a V in there and made it quite easy for me to work with. And I do throw with a sponge quite a bit. Especially when pulling up the walls. If your walls are out of center here at this stage of the game, what you can do, slow your wheel down a little bit and just grip it and kind of compress your rim. You'll be able to bring your walls back into center. When you're going to throw, you want to make sure that the throw, your first pulling, is that the wall is even. So if you have a bit of a mushroom, you want to level or even that out. That will make a world of difference for you. You also want to make sure that the walls on both sides are moist. I'm going to be using a sponge because that's just what I do. And I'm going to get right underneath the clay, and I'm just going to begin my first pull. And you want to make sure you bring that clay, my fingers I can feel are a bit dry on the pot. You want to bring your first pull, and you really want to be almost creating a bit of a volcano. You want it to work its way inwards because it's going to naturally spin outwards. Right? It's much harder to bring a pot back in than it is to let it lay down and widen. So again, make sure your sides are nice and moist. My sponge is wet, and I'm just going to get right in there, pushing underneath. And pulling up. You're not fighting the clay. You're not, I mean, the term pulling up, I think, is a bit of a misleading. You're squeezing, you're not pulling. When you pull, you'll probably throw it out of center and then get uneven walls. It's really a gliding. You're literally, your fingers are on opposite. You're pushing in here and you're kind of pushing out here, and that process is forcing the clay up. So it's like inside, my fingers are going to be going in this way, and this hand is coming out that way. So this hand is higher up than my outer hand. So my inner hand is higher than my outer hand. All right, so keeping the walls moist, always slippery. You don't want any dry spots. Get in there, pushing in. You can even see by me pushing in, that went up. So I can feel it. So then my hand, you can see there's that little bulge because my fingers on the inside are pushing out and my fingers on the outside are pushing in, and then slowly moving your hands upwards but keeping them locked in that position is what's going to help the clay move upwards. Compress your rim, and you've got yourself a really nice, on your way to a nice cylinder. I interrupt this video for a very important message. I have to thank some very important people who have most recently joined my Buy Me a Coffee community and have donated generously. I so appreciate it. I need to say a big thank you to Melanie, who bought me 3 coffees, Nancy bought me a coffee, and Anonymous bought me 20 coffees. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Honestly, it really is appreciated. All the money that goes into my Buy Me a Coffee link, it goes to help me put together productions and it being able to buy, you know, equipment and glazes that I will of course pay forward to you all. So thank you so much for finding that link. It's in the description below, guys, but thank you so much for finding that link and generously donating. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Compress, compress, compress. But there's still quite a bit of clay in there. You want to feel your walls to see, are you depositing clay in the wrong spot? Like, are you leaving it, you know, you're not being consistent in your pull. So let's get this clay up. Pushing in. If you make a note of my thumb on my left hand, I'm keeping that rim from splaying outwards right now. Just lightly, it's keeping the clay from moving outwards. You always want to keep moving the clay from the bottom of your pot. If you've got too much water down there, you'll add it again, you add it, you take it away, you add it, you take it away. So I'm gonna get another pull in this. I'm slowing my wheel down, which then means my pull has to be slower because you got to keep it in check with the rotation of the wheel. Nice and consistent. When you're removing your hands from your pot, you want it to be a slow, controlled movement rather than an abrupt movement. Abrupt is going to knock your piece out of center. My walls are pretty good. So what I'm going to do, this is my trick. This is the Garrity tool. I love this little guy. It's the Garrity C1. And I use this probably the most. I have a couple of Garrity tools, but I use this one all the time. Now I am going to use a rib. So this is a Mud Girls rib, the Cheryl Mud Girls, and it's the blue, so it's pretty rigid. It's very firm, and I've got this nice sharp wall. And I always clean my pots up like this. They're going to go up in unison. So literally, the two pieces are coming together and working upwards. It's going to remove the slip, but it's also going to strengthen my walls. Any unevenness is going to get sorted out, and you want to make sure, of course, your ribs are wet so that they too will slide. So inside, you can see it pushing out, and I'm going to take my other rib, and they're literally working in unison. Chamois. This came from, like, you know, a car chamois, and I just cut a strip of a new one. You don't want to use an old chamois. That's great for smoothing out and compressing your rims, and you can actually, you know, manipulate the shape the way you want it. But there you are. That would be a nice mug shape. That's, let's see, that is 5 inches. 5 inches high. The mouth is 4 inches wide. So now we got to replicate that. So sorry about this little confusing part. You know, the camera went out of focus and it was just too irritating to look at. So I had continued filming myself throwing, but I didn't speak through it, and I wanted to keep the original mug because I gave such great, you know, information in there that I think will really help someone new. So what I've done here is this is double speed through to the point where I pick up with the compressing of the walls with the 2 ribs. So enjoy. So like I was mentioning, I do this on every pot. I finesse my pots on the wheel, which eliminates a lot of the trimming needed. So by using this technique of 2 ribs, one on the inside, one on the outside, it really smooths out the walls of the pot. It compresses the clay, it makes it stronger, and you can really shape your mug quite a bit. If you don't feel comfortable using a rib on the inside and on the outside, you can use a sponge on the inside and a rib on the outside. That too will work. You could use your fingers on the inside and a rib on the outside. My go-to though is a rib on the inside and outside. Here I found it was a little bit wide, so all I'm doing is collaring it back in. Because I removed the slip, I had to add water, because it's when you use those ribs on the outside, you remove all of that slip, so it's pretty dry. And then I'm just giving a little flip at the edge just to kind of curve it out. By now switching to the red rib, it's a much softer rib, so I'm really able to like belly out the mug and give a nice smooth rounded teardrop shape. And here I am just removing any excess water that's on the bottom with my customized stick with a a sponge on it. And I always use my chamois just to compress the rim, and you can, finesse the shape as well. Don't know why my camera keeps going out of focus. Very frustrating. Anywho, I'm using my wood knife, or throwing stick, just to trim away some of the excess clay that is at the foot. I don't go all the way, but I just get rid of a little bit of the profile. Because I'm so familiar with this particular shape, I know how far I can push the clay. I use 2 hands when I use my the knife, just to make sure it doesn't kick out from underneath me and gouge the side of my pot. And then I'm just going to cut it off the bat and let it dry. All right, so I find it's best because when you extrude a handle, I don't apply it right away. I like it to have a little bit of time to firm up. It's just easier to manage. Sometimes when the clay is just too flimsy, it's no good. So I'm going to get my extruder ready. I have just a handheld extruder. She stays over here on my little wall. You can see I've got some clay still left there from last time. I prefer letting the clay dry completely. It's easier, just rinses right off. See, done. So I've got my extruder, and I just need to add clay. So I'll show you how I do this. So you can, if you're working out of a studio, you probably have a wall extruder. Mine, again, is this. I bought it at my pottery supply house. It's not the Shimpo. I'm not sure what the brand is on it, but it's not the Shimpo one. The Shimpo one was just more expensive, and this works beautifully. I'm going to be using this die. This came with my extruder, so it's a rather large opening. Now, if you're a hand builder, and before I had an extruder, I used to roll out a slab of clay that would be the equivalent of that thickness. That would be probably 1/4 of an inch thick, and then I would just measure and cut. But because I have an extruder, I'm going to use it. It just simplifies my life. So this, I'm going to measure it with a ruler to tell you. So if you are going to be rolling it out, it runs, yeah, it's an inch. It's exactly 1 1/4 inches. So for those of you who want to see, it's literally 1 1/4 inches wide, and I'm going to say that's 1/4 inch there. Oh, it's a little bit more than it's more than 1/4 inch. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5. I don't know what that measurement is. It looks. I think that means 5/8. I could be wrong. Don't ask me. It's 2 lines past 1/4 of an inch. Anyways, so that is the size of the die. I also have other dies which I keep on my wall, different shapes. So there's like, this is slightly smaller and I will use this as well. I bought this from, where is it? Great White North Pottery Supply. They're out of Sudbury, and they have some different, this is their handle set. Let's get this going on. Come on. Come on. Let's just get this. There. So you can see the shape. It's got a little bit of a groove. That's another one. So you can see that. So they give nice little profiles, and I've played with different ones just to see how I like them. But this is my go-to one. I use it the most. I use my extruder. You know what? If you're building a home studio or working out of your home, I use my extruder so much, like so much. I often will use the round. I don't have any of the hollow ones. I use this guy a lot. So even when I did my Christmas tree, I used this to create lots of extra texture. I haven't used the square or the triangular one. I might experiment a little bit with this. This could be good for doing a foot on a hump mold or something, and then just soften it up. Anyways, but they just come with different, this came with the set, and totally worth it. I almost forgot. So I typically want, because I use so many different clays, I will write on the outside of the bag what clay body it is, so that when I return to it or need it for something else. So this one is the Tucker's Smooth White. It's a lovely clay body to throw with, very smooth, and it fires up quite nicely. It typically prefers like I find like a cone 5.5, 6 top temp. I'm just going to cut a chunk of clay. I got to make quite a few handles. And I'm going to cut this up into, let's say, 3. And what I begin doing is just kind of knocking off the edge, the corner of my piece, to try to make it similar diameter to this. Right now, that ain't going to fit. So just knock it off a little bit. If you want to quickly sort of smooth out a piece, if you kind of almost just lightly throw it at a sort of at an angle like this, it's going to extend it as well as kind of kill the edge. So thinking it started here and now it's that. Probably shouldn't be wearing my rings. And I'm just going to cut off the end. And see how that's going to do. So you want to load your extruder, and this is just, it's like using a caulking gun. You know, you put the lever in, pull it back. I'm going to screw in the base. Typically, when I finish using an extruder, I open it all up, and I will leave it to dry overnight, all the different pieces. Like I take it all apart and leave all the pieces to dry. I find it much easier to clean up once it's all bone dry than to try maneuvering that kind of moist clay. So once it's loaded, you're going to just literally crank it, and then the clay is going to come out. So let me just, and I pull it out. I do it in as long a piece. I don't try breaking it off individually yet. I cut it up. I make my measurements. And I also find by doing it this way, I get the least amount of air, like pockets, because sometimes you get little pockets. It goes poof, and it, but this seems to work for me. You also get your arm work out. especially since I'm vertically challenged.
You might be wondering why I just don't do this over the floor. When those little air pockets happen, it can break the clay, the extruded clay off, and then it would just fall on the floor, and I don't want that.
So I managed to make this block 41 inches. And now I'm going to do my measurements. And I typically do 5.5 to 6 inches. So I will start with 6. So if you get one of these little air pockets, and if it's in a weird spot, sometimes I just fill it. Because at this point the clay is so soft, I'll just take a little piece, and you're going to see I'm going to be doing more work to it. I'm not just, you know, so I'll take a little something, a little piece of clay, and just sort of shove it in there. But if you leave this overnight, oh, trust me, I've done it, and it's really hard to get apart. So I strongly advise, you know, that you just get this clay off as much as you can. You don't have to get it all off, but I usually get a good amount off, and then I'll let it air dry and then soak in some water. It'll literally just melt away. It's amazing. So what I do is, so you can see, like, this has got lots of little edges, because in the end I take these kind of corners down anyways. So every piece kind of gets a little bit of compression this way. Example, so I've trimmed these two already, and that's the profile that I create. But this is what it looks like when it's fresh off the bat. So I can, you know, I've learned how much clay to carve back, but you can see how much is left and how much needs to go in order to create that profile. Because I only have 6 mugs to trim, I'm using my VEVOR wheel, which I quite like for trimming. But if I have a lot, then I want to use my Giffen grip, and I use my my other wheel. But this guy has been great for trimming. So anyways, I've centered this piece up on the wheel, and now I'm just going to trim my foot. I know my piece quite well, so I know where I typically end up leaving a lot of clay, which is on this corner. So I like to chew right through it using the little rasp. So you can hear there's a definite sound difference from my when I got the wheel itself. I found the packet of tools lodged up under the pulley system, and that's what was making that horrible wretched sound. Anyways, it works marvelously, and I quite like it, and I do use it quite often for trimming smaller pieces, or if I just have a few pieces that need trimming, instead of me bringing out my Giffen grip. And I use this for trimming my foot. It's a Dolan tool. I don't know if that's the tool number. It looks like it says 512, but it was handwritten in, so I'm not sure. But anyways, that's my profile that I use.
You're probably wondering how I managed to keep this mug from flying off the wheel without lugs of clay to hold it in place. Well, using some water to seal it to the actual wheel head, along with the VEVOR wheel, has these little tiny grooves in between each ring, and it really gives a snug, tight fit and holds the pot to the wheel quite nicely.
So I use that little pointy end to sort of get in there. I'm not going to do a deep foot, but I am going to put a foot. I just find it just looks a little nicer, and it feels nice on the hand underneath.
My clay is still pretty soft, so I don't want to take off too much material or apply too much pressure with my trimming tool, because you can easily gouge out a chunk that you didn't want to. So sometimes slow and steady wins the race. So this is the red rib by mud tools. It's their number 5. It's a really soft, flexible rib, and I use it so often. You saw me use it when I'm throwing, but I also use it to burnish, or to begin the burnishing process that I do on every pot. It's not a necessary process, but it's something I do. I find it will help push down any grog, help to remove any sort of tool marks that might have been left behind from the trimming process. It basically is polishing the clay, and it does, translate even into the additional firing process and leaves your bottoms extra smooth. And it's a little detail I think is important. This now I take it a step farther and I use a crystal. So this is a crystal quartz. Again, not necessary, but you can see how it polishes the clay that much more. It almost gives it a bit of a shine, and it gets a little bit moist too. You feel the moisture in the clay as it really begins compressing and polishing all of those particles back in. So I'm burnishing the bottom as well, and you can see how it just makes all of my edges so crisp, and that's another reason why I like the crystal. The crystal has organic shape. It's smooth all around, and I'll use different sides of it in the same way I would the rib, like the different profiles, in order to customize each individual groove on or concave on the pot. It just gets right in there, hugs it, and gives the most perfect finish. So to release your mug off of the wheel head, you just, with open hands, and so you're not applying too much pressure in any one spot, just firmly hold the pot and spin the wheel. It'll come loose. I'm using a small paint bottle with a little sponge on top just to support the inside of the mug when I impress my maker's mark, and that works beautifully. Now what I will do is just finesse the mouth or the lip of the pot just to clean it up nicely and make it so that it's still a pleasant experience to drink out of. So I have been handling these pots a fair bit, and before they go on to their next step of the handles being applied, I just like to make sure they are perfectly round. I just use these terracotta pots. I have a variety of sizes, and just snugly sort of twist them in the opening will help to bring the lip back to round.
All right, so I have let these sort of the little lugs of clay sort of set up for the time that I was trimming the mugs, and I'm now just rolling them out a little bit more with my pony roller. So just to begin, it's going to help compress the clay a little bit more. It's going to help smooth it out, because when you start handling it, it starts to, a thin piece starts to warp a little bit, and I do a lot of this kind of compressing of the edges and the sides. But since just so you get an idea, I cut them at 6 inches, and now they are at 7 inches. So I've just rolled them out that much more, and I'm going to let them set up a little bit more before I take it to the next step. Bought some new goodies. So everything came all at once. I don't even remember what I bought. I placed an order from, this is from the Sounding Stone. So this is out in Winnipeg, Manitoba. So there were some goodies that I wanted that only they had. And then this is from Pottery Supply House. So they both came really quickly. Great companies. And if you're, like, a lot of you guys reach out and ask about where to find things, and, you just type in a Google search for pottery supply near me, and you'll be amazed. And yeah, you might have to pay shipping for some things, but, because I find I have to shop at all different places, because sometimes something is out at one store, or one store doesn't carry something, so that can be it too, right? So I like this. I actually put that on mine because I use the same biodegradable. They're made out of cornstarch, so I use these as well, but I don't have a notification on it, and I kind of like that. It says here our packing material is made from cornstarch, which is biodegradable. So you know what? I think I might do that because yeah, they look like styrofoam, but they're not. They're actually not, you know, they look like cornstarch. They look like whatchamacallit, styrofoam, but they're made of cornstarch and they will literally dissolve in water. So I'm gonna start doing that. I'm gonna add that to my packing slips. All right, so I got some glazes. Some are just, I just need more of. So that's sangria. Oh, it's so cold. That's sangria. Hope it didn't freeze because that's really cold. I got it as soon as it got, literally the second it was dropped off. I went up and got it, but there's condensation on that. I hope that wasn't frozen. So I ended up getting another, I was almost out of my Indigo Rain. So this is a Mako glaze. I'm almost out, so I had to order some more. I ordered some more Autumn Purple, some Sangria. You know, I've been having fun with that. I ordered Dark Flux. I don't have this, and I've had a few ideas and I've wanted to kind of play around with. So I got some Dark Flux, some more Sangria, another Soft Red. So Soft Red is another spectrum glaze, really gorge. If you haven't tried it, get your hands on some. Thank you, Nat from Mud Magic. I got another one of my Cirrus Flow. So that is an Amico glaze. So another one of their Flex. And then I got a Honeydew. So this one has a bit more of a green appearance to it. I haven't tried this one yet. So hopefully the Honeydew will be my friend. And then I ordered some MKM stamps. This is a little clover because I'm going to do some whatchamacallit stuff. And then, oh right, and then I ordered letters. Thank you, Lisa from Finkel Pottery, for suggesting. I know they're a different style than yours, but these are the MKM letters. They are pricey, guys. Oh boy, they're very pricey, but they are fun. So I went with the Charming. So they're called, it's the Charming, and I only bought the uppercase. I didn't buy the lowercase. I may if I truly love it, but this just is the uppercase. And so they're the wooden stamp, and I'm excited to try that. Yeah, why is this all wet? I'm excited to try these, and that's great. Maybe I'll try them on my stuff that I've got going on right now. And then I ordered from Diamond Core Tools. So this is a 50 grit, and it's cheaper this way, much cheaper. I'm curious how it goes, but this here is a silicone carbide grinding disc, and it's a diamond core, and it was only like $25, and you have to stick it to a bat, which I ordered and I put in here as well. So I'm going to try that. My grinding, my disc is an 80 grit. So I ordered one of these, a speedball, so that will sit in the middle when I line it up, and it's already got the sticky on the back, so that will be my 40 grit, and I did that deliberately on a different color so that it'll be easier for me to pick out, you know, compared to my other one. So my 80 grit. What do I have in here? What does this say? Oh, more stuff. What else did I buy? Did I buy more things? Now I save packing stuff as well, and I will reuse packing stuff. So I'm going to add these to my packing peanuts. Yay, more packing peanuts. So this is the Pottery Supply House, and again, Lisa. So I ended up buying the red wine and the red onion, and I buy them in the 1 liter when I first try it, because I'm, you know, and they are so inexpensive, guys. Like Lisa was saying, the pint is like $15, the 1 liter is $21, and again, Canada, we pay through our nose, guys, and my American friends, like glazes, a typical pint is, you know, like this can be anywhere from $28 to $31 for one. And so it's quite pricey, and the same Mako's a little less. They're around $20, $25, $26 in general. Some might be a little bit more, but it's really quite expensive. Prices went up dramatically over the course, you know, with this whole COVID supply chain stuff. So it really did hit Canada in particular hard. I know you guys got it too, but it's expensive. Ceramics is an expensive hobby or career. Just, you know, you gotta buy stuff in order to make stuff, and you want to stay current. So these are all still they're stilts, kiln stilts, and I do pack them up quite nicely because I don't want them just rattling around and breaking. So that is good. You can never really, in my opinion, overpack something. You know, if you've bought from me, you know I really take a lot of care, because I don't want a package, you know, if it gets damaged, I don't want my pieces to be broken on the inside. So they have, that's cute. So they stick them into styrofoam. So that's kind of smart. So I ordered some bigger ones and some little guys too. So now I've got some ideas. I am going to add some nice lettering or something to these mugs with my brand new letters. So before you put it in the slab roller, you want to begin flattening it. And you almost want to put a bit of a bevel on it, just to help it go through, at least with my little slab roller. So what I like about this little guy is that it's tabletop, it's small, and it works for my purposes brilliantly. Still pricey to buy brand new. I mean, I got this secondhand off of Facebook Marketplace. Oopsie, it's shaking there. Off Facebook Marketplace, and all I had to do was fix this, which was easy peasy. So you just put it there and then slide her in. So that was the first roll. I like to do a little bit at a time. Switch directions to really help compress my clay. And this was just a piece of canvas I ended up getting from a fabric store I bought, and I cut it up and I use it because I find this gets wet really fast. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a 1/8 of an inch. So I'm just going to slide that board in and then put them all in there. So now they've got, that's the equivalent of a 1/2 inch now. I was having a little trouble explaining how this slab roller works, so I'm doing a quick little voiceover. This mini mite is, you adjust the thickness of the clay by adding or taking away the masonite boards that it comes with. It comes with 2 1/8 inch masonite board and 2 1/4 inch masonite boards. And just by adding those in different quantities or variations, you customize the thickness of your slab of clay. So now I have 2/4 and 1/8 spacers. Oh, these are lovely. Okay, guys, Sarah approved. These are wonderful. They really carve in nicely. I'll let them settle up and come back and attach them in a little while. They have become a lot firmer. They're still not totally firm, but they're a lot firmer. This one here, so the lug, it's you feel resistance. You can feel it's really starting to set up. And you can see this one has all those little kind of imperfections, but that's going to get really compressed in right now when I actually go and do this. So down one side, I keep my finger on the end because it typically likes to veer. When you press here, it wants to curve this way. So I try just to keep my finger at the end to help prevent it from veering off. And then down the middle, go over it again, over it again, down the middle. Again, it makes a pretty detail. So they've really had a chance to firm up, but they're still moist. The shape I use, it's sort of like that. I know that the angle, it's going to be sort of on this angle to attach to the side of my mug. So I'm just going to go straight down and give it a cut, saving this piece, and I'm just going to go right at the end of the piece here, right at the very bottom, on an angle as well, just to cut it so that you can see it's got like a little bit of a beveled edge there, and that will help it to line up nicely on the side of the mug. And you see, by letting it set in there, or get firm, it's not flopping everywhere, so you get a much nicer application. So that will be a handle, and I usually flatten it out a little bit on the side there, like so. So now what I want to do is map where I want this. So I just am going to just use a needle tool to score basically where I want it, supporting the inside, and I'm just using this little scoring tool here, and I'm going to just really score it up. I'm not shy when I score. I want to get it, I want the two pieces to really marry together. Then I take my trusty brush and I just want to soak it in here. Just get that nice and moist. I'm going to do the same thing to the handle. Getting it as roughed up as possible, and then that will help to create the slip to really help these two pieces stick together. Now, what I'm going to do, bring my little cushion over here, just so it's got something so it doesn't get too crushed up here. So now I'm going to put that roughly where I want it, and that roughly where I want it. Make sure it's on straight. Wiggle it around a little bit. Press it down. Press it down. Always checking to make sure it's straight. But even when one is not perfectly straight, you know what? I'm not offended again. It adds interest to the pot to me, and it shows it was homemade. I am not a machine. I am a human, and I like sometimes when there's some imperfections. So I'm just going to really get that clay down and mashed in. And I use this guy quite a bit. So this is a Kemper tool, and it says JA4, I believe is what it says here. Let's see if this will go into focus. Kemper tool, JA4. It's almost got like a little bit of like a butter knife kind of thing on this end, and then it's got a nice, lots of different profiles to use to get in and kind of help finesse your piece. So it's actually quite lovely for bringing clay down. So I will do it like this. Sometimes my finger, I almost prefer this to my finger. Add a bit of water there. And then just mixing those two clay bodies together. All right, now the little bits that I had cut off, I'm just going to cut a little bit more. Nice even piece. I'm going to roll it out. Again, because things are drier, it rolls better, I find. You get better control. Now that's, I'm going to cut in half. One for the top, one for the bottom. I'm going to just dip it in some water. Just slide that right in there. Dip this one in water. Slide that right in there. If you don't have one of these, you can use your needle tool. I love my little mud sponges. I clean my needle tool off, but you can press it down with a needle tool just to kind of push that clay into that joint. So you can use your needle tool, and then what I do is press it down the side and cut away. I just literally will remove the excess clay from this little edge, because I want my glaze to come down and pool down around my handle. So I try to make a nice clean line there, and then just pull it up, like so. A little bit of water, not too much, just to kind of smooth it. If you see little tiny cracks, you can add a bit of water. I do it with a brush rather than the sponge, because sponges will raise the grog up, but the brush seems to lay it down. So, all right, so now down the bottom, I'll do the bottom one using this little guy. So I'm just going to just shove it in here. Now you always want to support if you're going to be applying pressure, because the joint is not secured yet. So you see how this one works. Just hold that little coil around the edge and press it in. Now I could leave my handle like that, and I often do. I leave it rounded, but I kind of like this little, there's a bit of a shape. So I just kind of press that in a little bit. That's my signature shaped handle there. But there she goes. That's ready. Now I will prop that up to dry, but I'm going to add some little words to this. This is going to be a love mug.
So I'm just mapping out and doing a dry run sort of thing to see how or where I want this little love you sign to be on my mug. And now I'm going to be scoring the actual back of the little clay lug really well. You want to make sure that this, you know, affixes to the mug and doesn't pop off during some of the firings, because that can happen. So nice deep scoring throughout the entire piece. And then I'm adding some water just to sort of create slip, to begin to create slip. You could add slip if you want, but this is what I do. And then instead of actually using my needle tool to map out, you know, the edges of the sign, I just place it roughly where I want it, and that will leave a little bit of slip behind. And now I know exactly where to score on the pot. And that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to score it nice and deep. So once the mug has been scored, I'm going to add some water to this side as well to create slip. So we're going to have slip both on the mug as well as on the love you sign. And that will really ensure a good bond. Now, because I actually did a test run with it and it's been sitting there a minute, some of that slip has absorbed. So I'm just giving it another scoring real quick. You can't really overscore unless you're going straight through the pot or through the little piece of clay. So when I actually apply it to the side of the mug, you want to make sure, of course, that you get all the little air bubbles out, or you don't want to trap air. So I press sort of from the ends in the middle and work my way out. And you kind of want to see water come up to the sides, or even, ooze out the bottom, because then you're pushing out the air and that you've got a really good bond. I was using my needle tool because I saw a couple of little flakes of clay that were in my lettering. So I just, very carefully removed it, so that when I'm pressing with my finger, that I'm not actually pressing that little chunk of clay in. So taking a brush, and I like these brushes because they have a fine, like a point. They kind of go into they're like a tapered or a flame shaped. And so that point goes right into like the corners of the sign and will just sort of clear away the slip. I'm going to let it rest for a little while, and then I'm going to come back and finesse that little spot again. So it's not like you do it and done. It's one of those things that at least I find as I take some time finessing it. So by the time I go and apply the other little letterings, I will go back and finesse the front again. So I use corks just to help keep pressure on the newly made joint of the handle, and it works marvelously. We're in the final stretch, guys. I know this is a long video. Oh my goodness, putting it together, I was like, whoa. There's just so many steps to actually making a mug, and we're not done yet because I got to glaze. That'll be another video though. Anywho, I'm adding underglaze. I've chosen Hot Pink by Spectrum, and it's a really lovely pink when it fires. And I like putting it on when my pots are, at this leather hard stage, for two reasons. One, why not? And two, because I then have another opportunity after it's been bisque fired. If it's not dark enough, I can add more. But if I wait till it's bisque fired, you don't really know how intense it's going to be, or if you miss a spot. So why not? You can do it, so might as well try. That's kind of my thoughts on it. So I'm not putting it on carefully. I'm going over the edges of the lettering because I can wipe it back, and that's what I do. I don't let it dry thoroughly, but I do let it set up for a moment. Like I'll continue on and do the other mugs with their respective colors, but and then just give it a light wipe back. And if I need to go back in and add a little bit more of the underglaze, I will. So this is the Amico's velvet underglaze in a red. Oh, which is this red? I can't remember. I'll definitely list it on the screen. But this color is so vibrant, and I think it's perfect for these Love mugs. And I am doing exactly the same technique, so getting it right inside, nice and deep. I'm using fine artist brush just to get it in there, and I believe I got these brushes at Home Depot when I was there. Overpriced, you know, but it was a matter of convenience, and I was there picking up paint for my garage door when I did it a while back, and I've been using it now for this purpose. So experiment. And the nice thing about underglazes is you can mix them. I had contemplated doing that. I thought about making custom shades, but I just went for them full strength. Now these mugs, after you wipe it back, you're going to have to let them dry thoroughly before they can hit up for a bisque fire, and that's going to be at least a couple of days.
I think that's so precious. So these are super fun. Hope you try it, or something along the lines. I hope you enjoyed this video, and seeing what I'm doing in the studio, and you know, I'm gonna try to just touch base and let you see where I'm at, and hopefully give you some pointers on some things or inspire you to try something. Until next time, take care.
If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, be sure to hit that subscribe button. It's free. Come on now. Who doesn't like free? And don't forget to like it. It means the world to me. And while you're at it, don't be shy. Leave a comment. I love hearing from you. Thanks for watching.